Today we'll talk a little bit about blood work. What is blood work? And that's the question. When it's mentioned about doing blood work, it's not just as simple as testing the blood, because testing the blood, we can do that for many different reasons. But when you hear the term blood work, which is usually a general term, it doesn't give specifics as to what's being done. So what we hear sometimes is where a client may say, "I had blood work done um, at my regular vet, a week ago. Why do I need to do blood work again?" But the question is, what is blood work? And also, you must remember that the chemistry of the body is changing um, every second. So, although the pet may have had blood work a week ago, a lot could have changed since then. In fact, on hospitalized pets, sometimes we check different values in the blood every few hours because things will change rapidly. Sometimes, in fact, we check things by the minute, depending on what we're checking. Now, in terms of general practice, usually your blood work, um, is done to evaluate certain things like the organ function, and to take a look at different types of cells, the red blood cells, the white blood cells, the different types of white blood cells, as this may give an indication as to what may be going on. So, for example, there are certain types of white blood cell called neutrophils. Neutrophils are like the soldiers of the body. They're the main army that fights against infection. They'll also get elevated for other reasons, such as inflammation, and as I mentioned before, infection, and then sometimes with excitement, epinephrine may cause them to be a little bit elevated. Sometimes steroids will cause them to also be elevated. So if steroids was given by, say, the owner or by a veterinarian, then these neutrophil numbers may be elevated in these cases. So that's why history is also important when we take a look um, at the blood. There's another section to the most blood examination, um, the blood chemistry, where we look at things like glucose, we look at some of the liver enzymes such as the ALP and the ALT. Also, we look at things such as GGT, which is one of those enzymes that can be found in the pancreas. Also, we find that in the bile duct. We also look at things like, the urea in the blood. We look at creatinine in the blood. We look at other things. With our blood analyzer here, we do analyze more things than your average practice would, because it gives us more information that may help with making a diagnosis, and or may help with putting the appropriate treatment together. So bear in mind, all blood work, when we hear blood work, it doesn't mean the same thing. It's just a general terminology that I don't particularly like. And I think lots of your purists and internists may agree with me that it's too broad a term to use to connotate anything more than we're getting blood for evaluation. That, for me, that's what that means. We're taking blood for evaluation. Now the question is, what are we evaluating? That's the big question, because there are different analyzers, some of which will check for maybe 5 to 10 things, some will check for 17 things, some will check for 25. Depends on the analyzer that we use in local, in regular practice. But just bear that in mind, that because the blood work was done doesn't mean that a lot of things that you may think was checked, in fact, was not checked. So keep that in mind. You could ask your veterinarian what's included what will be tested for, because there are literally thousands of things that we could analyze by checking the blood. So I just wanted to make a quick note on that, and let me briefly tell you about some of the most common things that we'll see in blood work. The red blood cell we evaluate for things like anemia. We evaluate for baby red blood cells. We evaluate hemoglobin, that kind of stuff that will give us clues to disease processes. Also, we look at something we call the leukogram, which is just a look at some of the common white blood cells. The neutrophils, as I mentioned earlier, there's infections, inflammations, you'll see them going high, and of course, for some other reasons. The eosinophils are the most beautiful cells, I must tell you. They're the most beautiful cell in the body, and they're filled with granules, and those will see elevations mostly with internal parasites, external parasites such as fleas. Sometimes in cases of allergies, we'll see them being elevated, and rarely in some cases of with cancer such as mast cell cancer, we may see them also being elevated. We also look at lymphocytes, which these are the cells that are very, very important. They play a vital role in the immune system, and sometimes we'll see them going high with infections. They help to create antibodies that help to fight things that comes invade the body. Then you have basophils sometimes with parasites or some cancer. You'll see them going elevated, but they're very rare, and we rarely see them under the microscope. And that's the CBC, complete blood count. That section of evaluation of the blood. That's what we call checking the blood cells. That is referred to as a CBC, complete blood count. And then we move over to the chemistry portion. This is where we evaluate some things that may give us indications as to the health of the organs, say the kidneys, say the liver. Sometimes we could get some indications about the pancreas, depending on what analyzer you use. Most, may not have the analyzers that can do this, but here, in a routine check of the blood, that's also included, where we have some values that may give an indication of issues with the pancreas. So it depends on the analyzer that your veterinarian is using. But that's the basic gist of the basic blood work, is to evaluate mostly the some of the cells, and also evaluate some enzymes and some electrolytes that may give us a clue to what disease process may be going on, or to where the disease process may be affected. So that's just basic information and routine check of the blood that we do here. Thanks for watching.